So I'll just go through it and let's see what this ARRR pirate coin or pirate chain is all about, shall we? Pirate chain is everything we wanted Zcash to be. Pirate chain started off as a challenge among Zcash and Komodo developers to fork Zcash's code into a private by default delayed proof of work blockchain with 51 attack resistance. Their endeavor apology. Yikes. I got the COVID. Okay. Their endeavor worked so well that this test project ended up becoming the real deal. This is an obfuscation, if not an outright lie. The way startups work, listen, don't get me wrong, right? It's like everyone commits tentatively to a minimum viable product, and then they work towards releasing that. But believe me, everyone works in best hopes that this turns into a money-making endeavor, right? No one's sets out to like. Maybe they do, but this is like a very angled view. It's very generous. It's a very generous interpretation of their intention. There we go. Why is ARRR important? Pirate Chain has entered the scene claiming to have the best of both worlds, mandatory privacy combined with cutting-edge ZK snarks enforced for all transactions by default. Page 27 of this report. Pirate Chain has entered the scene claiming to have the best of both worlds, mandatory privacy combined with cutting-edge enforcement. Okay. Okay. I'm having a hard time with some of the assumptions here, but we'll wait for page 27. Where do I buy it? We like Trade Ogre the best. There is no KYC required or withdrawal limit, and it currently has the most liquidity and volume. Other exchanges are Bitcoin.com and CoinEx. You store it using a pirate.black/wallets. Okay. During a talk in 2018, privacy advocate and NSA whistleblower Edward Snowden said this. When we talk about which cryptocurrencies are interesting to me, I've said it before and I'll say it again. Zcash for me is the most interesting right now because the privacy properties of it are truly unique. But we see more and more projects that are trying to emulate this, and I think this is a positive thing. I hate to say this, but I think I agree with Apple on this one. At least what they say, not what they do. Because what they do is, lift up their skirt for any governmental agency that comes their way, just like any other corporation. The few times that they don't, a big to do is made about it. I have a hard time with the privacy component of cryptocurrency because no one that talks about privacy can explain exactly how this is private, obfuscated, recorded, this is what this is. There's no privacy. I as an engineer who's worked with computers his whole life, I don't understand how privacy can be achieved using technology. Literally everything that you do on your computer has a GUID, globally unique identifier. Um, your applications, your software, apps, they have signatures. Obviously, your hardware, your Wi-Fi connection has an ID, and it's all recorded all the time by your ISP. Carnivore grabs it before, so that I forgot who it belongs to. I think CIA, could be NSA. The Carnivore is a piece of hardware, a project Carnivore. Look it up. Piece of hardware that sits in ISPs, essentially performing a legal, well, actually illegal, but whatever, man in the middle attack by capturing everything before it goes through the, I don't know, like, Tor proxies or something like that. I would love privacy. I just don't understand how it's expected by anyone. We have to start from the fact that we don't have any. And we can't get any with technology. That's the other thing. What we can do is perhaps control how our information is used. I think that should be our focus. When we talk about which cryptocurrencies, oh yeah, I've read that. Okay. Zcash is well known for its innovative usage of cutting-edge ZK snarks cryptography, according to the Zcash website. The acronym ZK snark stands for Zero Knowledge Succinct Non-Interactive Argument of Knowledge. Nerds love coming up with cool acronyms. And refers to a proof construction where one can prove possession of certain information, for example, a secret key, without revealing that information and without any interaction between the prover and verifier. Okay, sounds like central authority. Major privacy flaws in Zcash. Right, so now Zcash, a coin that was supposed to address privacy concerns, has privacy flaws. How is any development team supposed to eliminate that? It's unclear. Even in spite of Zcash's innovative usage of this cryptographic privacy technology, its implementation has always been severely lacking, because this privacy feature is not enabled by default, much less enforced for all transactions at the protocol level. Right. Okay, so this alone is not enough for Pirate Chain to take over, because this is a feature that Zcash can enable, and then they're playing on level playing field. Feature for feature. Plus, Zcash has an entrenched user base. However, this is not about let's be clear about this. This is not about a viability of Pirate Chain. This is about comprehensiveness of the report. It's about the kinds of things that you should be looking for when you're examining a coin. And it's about capitalizing on its rise and fall, as it were. Zcash could have been Monero, XMR's greatest competitors. But unfortunately, its community insisted on developing Zcash as a coin with optional privacy, which is a fatal flaw in its quest to become private digital cash. Zcash also has other flaws, which we will discuss later throughout this report. At TCV, we consider optional privacy to be no privacy at all. Therefore, Zcash is not truly fungible. You know, I fear that so much of what's considered privacy is purely rhetoric. Um, I agree with Jeff and the team. I think this is a good thing to strive for. But it's unclear to me as to how any of these teams are achieving this, um, because they can't, because whatever they're doing with blockchain and with these coins is built on top of the existing infrastructure. And the existing infrastructure is bagged and tagged. There's no privacy. Zcash utilizes two types of addresses: Z addresses, shielded addresses, and T addresses, transparent addresses. I hope this focus on Zcash pays off, because I'm here to find out about Pirate Chain. Z addresses are private shielded addresses that use zero knowledge proofs as part of the transactions. T addresses are transparent addresses, which are essentially identical to Bitcoin addresses and are completely transparent. T addresses are fully traceable and visible. Right, this is a private key, public key type of thing. I get it. There have been several studies showing us throughout the years that in practice, Zcash does not live up to its privacy claims and is not really private at all. After looking at the Zcash Block Explorer's public statistics, one can clearly see that very few transactions are shielded in comparison to those that are transparent. A recent academic study entitled Altcoin Traceability, published on May 18, 2020 by Carnegie Mellon University, showed that only 0.1% of Zcash users are using Z addresses properly. 99.9% of Zcash transactions are traceable since they are using transparent T addresses. So this is a recent report. No wonder Zcash has been sort of sucking wind. In that report, Dash was also shown to utterly fail in regards to its false claims of privacy as well. That's cool. It's a kind of a cool report to check out. We might as well call it Tcash instead of Zcash, since no one actually uses Z addresses. Damn. Shots fired. This means, from a technical standpoint, Dash's privacy functionality is no greater than Bitcoin's, making the label of privacy coin a misnomer for Dash. Chain analysis can still provide the transaction value, or at least one address for over 99% of Zcash. Chainalysis' June 8th, 2020 report verified the findings of the study by Carnegie Mellon. But of the transactions that interact with a shielded pool, only 6% are completely shielded, i.e. sender, receiver, and transaction amount are all encrypted. That's only 0.9% of all Zcash transactions. So even though the obfuscation on Zcash is stronger due to ZK Snark's encryption, zero knowledge, I forgot what the rest stands for. Succinct, non-interactive argument of knowledge. Zero knowledge. I don't know what this is, but it sounds like it can be achieved by sending a 0 or a 1. If there's no other function, and you just need to answer in positive or negative, yes, the funds are okay, or transactions okay, or no, transactions not okay, and you don't have to provide for any sort of back and forth, then this just, they send back a packet that says 0, no, it's no good, or 1, yes, it's good. The thing about blockchain technology is that they are taking the engineering culture and combining it with the finance culture, regulations, governmental, um, law and order, compliance structure, control structure. And there's a lot of room for obfuscation as you attempt to straddle those two, let's call them industry. So that something that a non-blockchain engineer wouldn't dare brag about because it's so mundane and so ordinary. When you do it in blockchain, all of a sudden it's zero knowledge, succinct, non-interactive argument of knowledge. ZK snark. You know what I mean? You can you can make money with an acronym like that, but it's just a 0 or a 1. So it's, I guess what I'm trying to say is that when it comes to coins, substance is sometimes hard to discern. Correction, always hard to discern. But of the transactions that interact with a shielded pool, only 6% are completely shielded. We read that. So even though the obfuscation on Zcash is stronger due to ZK Snark's encryption, chain analysis can still provide the transaction value and at least one address for over 99% of Zcash activity. In addition to exposing the privacy flaws in Zcash, this chain analysis report further proves that we were correct in our decision to remove Dash and private instant verified transactions and an insecure proof of stake fork of Dash from the TVD crypto portfolio for misleading people by claiming to be private when in fact they were not. I appreciate Jeff and team's attention to privacy, and I appreciate their fervor, and I appreciate them practicing what they preach. But I'm not optimizing for privacy. I'm optimizing for, when it comes to coins such as ARRR, etc. I'm optimizing for profits, I suppose, would be the simplest way of phrasing it. Um, But on a much more meaningful level, I'm optimizing for knowledge because I enjoy learning about these technologies, and the gambling component is fun. So I don't care about this in terms of privacy. I want to gamble and I want to win or lose. It's also sometimes fun. For further details, please read our two in-depth articles, Dash, Digital Cash, or Digital Trash. That's funny. From the TDV August 2019 issue, starting on page 29. And our follow-up article, Doubling Down, Dash's Digital Trash, from the TDV September 2019 Dispatch, starting on page 28. Wow, nice. In addition to the problems exposed by the research paper above, other academic papers have also examined the serious problems with Zcash's optional privacy and the negative consequences for its privacy as a whole. For example, in the 2018 paper, an empirical analysis of anonymity in Zcash, George Kapos, Harun Yusuf, Mari Mahler, and Sarah Michaeljohn, University College London, presented at the 27th Usenix Security Symposium in 2018, the researchers shared some fascinating discoveries after analyzing the two 242,847. Right, that's a million. So 2,242,847 hundred transactions on the Zcash blockchain at the time. In order to understand Zcash, it is necessary to understand the kinds of transactions on its network. As explained earlier, there are two types of addresses in Zcash: T addresses and Z addresses. Listed below are the four main types of Zcash transactions, and they are further described in the following diagram underneath. Transparent transactions move funds from T addresses to T addresses. Shielded transactions move from T addresses to Z addresses. Deshielded transactions move from Z addresses to T addresses, and private transactions move between Z addresses. A simple diagram illustrating the different types of Zcash transactions. All transaction types are depicted and described with respect to a single input and output. That can be generalized to handle multiple inputs and outputs. In a T to T transaction, visible quantities of Zcash move between visible T addresses. Z in, Z out means, I guess, zero privacy, right? Sorry, not equal zero. Okay. In a T to Z transaction, a visible amount of Zcash moves from a visible T address into a shielded pool, at which point it belongs to a hidden Z address. In a Z to Z transaction, a hidden quantity of Z moves between hidden Z addresses. Finally, in a Z to Z transaction, a hidden quantity of ZEC moves from a hidden Z address out of the shielded pool, at which point a visible quantity of it belongs to a visible T address. All right. In the report, the researchers categorized the 2,242,847 transactions according to their transaction type, which includes the 4 types above, with some additional combination for mined coins as seen in the table below. Interesting. Deshielded, shielded, mixed, private, shielded, deshielded, coin gen. Okay. Right, yeah. Total for each transaction type category. The researchers graphed the total number of transactions within each transaction type category over time, as seen in the figure below. So, yeah, the transparency increased. Damn. You can barely see the private line. It is evident from the graph above that the number of transparent transactions has significantly grown, and much more so than the other types of transactions. Notice also that the total number of fully private Z to Z transactions is so tiny in comparison that they are barely noticeable at the bottom of the right. Okay. It is clear from the above graph that Zcash's actual privacy is very poor, and that in practice, the vast majority of transactions are fully public and transparent, very much like we see in Bitcoin. As we have written about in many of our reports, transparent coins like Bitcoin are in effect surveillance coins. Right. Right. Which are studied by governments and their big data blockchain analytics corporate contractors. All of this is true, but Zcash can change its default setting to make Z to Z transactions default, and with their built-in user base, thus far ARRR as a newcomer with a feature, when you're building a product, this is not unfair advantage. So when you're looking for a coin, well, listen, if we're looking for something like long term, man, it's such a funky thing. So you're looking for unfair advantage, right? But when it comes to altcoins, the cycle is something like a day or a week or a month, and then you're out or mostly out, right? I don't know. Let's come back to that. It is clear from the above graph. Okay. So, in the paper's abstract, the researchers said this: we conclude that while it is possible to use Zcash in a private way, it is also possible to shrink its anonymity set considerably by developing simple heuristics based on identifiable patterns of usage. The researchers later concluded. Our study has shown that most users are not taking advantage of the main privacy features of Zcash at all. Furthermore, the participants who do engage with the shielded pool do so in a way that is identifiable, which has the effect of significantly eroding the anonymity of other users by shrinking the overall anonymity set. So I get that privacy minded folks were early adopters of these technologies, crypto technologies and such. That all stands to reason. But I think it's a wrong assumption to think that majority of Zcash users are using it because it's private or that they're even using it unknowingly. Um, Perhaps they're quite aware of their lack of privacy, and perhaps they don't care. This research paper was referenced in a Motherboard Vice article. Cryptocurrencies transactions may uncover sales of shadow broken hacking tools. Broken hacking. Shadow broken. And included a case study analyzing possible Zcash payments sent to the shadow brokers hacking group. I see. Cryptocurrency transactions may uncover sales of shadow broker hacking tools. Hmm. Who is selling stolen code from the NSA? Hmm. You see what I mean? It's like, who is more paranoid and who spends more money on protecting their privacy than NSA? You'd be hard pressed to find anyone. And yet, no one's safe. From this university research study, it is evident that Zcash's claims on privacy have been significantly exaggerated. In contrast, the Monero community takes its privacy claims much more seriously. Several experts in the Monero community have also addressed Zcash's major flaws in this Reddit thread, some of which were shown in that same academic paper as well. Just these links alone, these references, it's worth the price of admission for this report. Like I said, the crypto vigilante reports and newsletters, it's expensive. I don't know how much it is these days, but I paid almost $1,000 for it. Um, I was just happy to give Jeff some money. Everything else is gravy, really. He's provided so much value to me over the years. Another research paper on the linkability of Zcash transactions examines some fascinating metrics concerning the utilization of Zcash's shielded addresses. To complete the previous thought, well worth it is what I'm saying. Just these links alone to sort of backtrace and find out what kind of individuals are writing what kind of things um, that impact and sway the opinions of the experts, such as Mr. X, etc., um, who have, you know, thousands of people reading these kinds of reports. So just all of these links is worth the price of admission. Good job, lads. Good job all around. Another research paper on the linkability of Zcash transactions examined some fascinating metrics concerning the utilization of Zcash's shielded addresses. In the study, the author observed that the majority of Zcash sent to shielded Z addresses are sent back to transparent addresses in the future, as seen in the diagram below. Improper use of Z addresses can lead to transaction linkability. This pattern of transactions actively revealed an existence of a large number of round-trip transactions where the same or nearly the same number of coins are sent from a transparent address to a shielded address and back again to a transparent address. After performing a search for these RTTs, the researcher performed a heuristic analysis which enabled them to link 31.5% of all coins sent to shielded addresses. The author argued that the habitual usage of these so-called round-trip transactions exhibits high linkability, especially when they occur nearby temporally. I love that they used that word temporally, and then they coupled it with nearby. That's funny, especially when they occur like close to one another or around the same time. Like, there's a lot of ways that you can say that are not nearly as cool. Nearby temporally is just that's like Hemingway level shit. Wow. Okay. So what are we thinking this far? We're thinking that um, I didn't need proof. I didn't even need this much background on Zcash. Everything I've read about Zcash after page 2 has been superfluous. Um, Interesting, fascinating, even. Um, but it feels like they wrote a report on Zcash and figured they jam it into Pirate Chain. Uh, but maybe I'm too picky. They're related. They'll probably tie it all up in a nice little bow at the end. Let's continue. The Monero community has also made some interesting observations regarding this research paper, and apparently the paper's author collaborated with the Monero Research Lab on it as well. Okay. I mean, that's obvious conflict, right? I mean, we all understand that, right? Okay. BTC Manager published a helpful article about this research, and Bitcoin developer Peter Todd commented on it in some tweets as well, as seen below. While great that quantify this risk in detail, lots of people have been warning the Zcash failure to mandate private transactions, as in Monero, was obviously dangerous. Zcash seems focused on shiny new math instead of component engineering. Why the trusted setup failed, and publishing a paper on the linkability of certain types of Zcash transactions. Okay, so we read that. Failing to mandate private transaction was also dishonest. Failing to mandate um, it significantly helps Zcash adoptions. I was wondering why. So, how is Pirate Chain supposed to um, overcome the adoption hurdle, right? If it's Z to Z transactions are more difficult, how is a Pirate Chain making them easier? And why couldn't Zcash do the same? Um, and then if Z transactions are more difficult to adopt, then how is Pirate Chain expecting to achieve such adoption? If Zcash switches and this becomes a friction point for existing user base, Zcash loses some percentage of their user base. It's probably still okay. Um, and in the long term, it might work out well for them. Okay, newer isn't always better. I prefer XMR over Zcash precisely because of that preference. It says a lot about the careful craftsmanship that has gone into Monero. It deserves and has earned its price. Fair enough. Zcash shielded transactions traced by a smart Twitter user in July 2020. Okay. In addition to the academic paper showing the privacy weaknesses in Zcash, there was recently an incident on Twitter where a Zcash supporter dared people to trace the T address of the origin of the Zcash funds sent in the transaction ID for his donation to the EFF. A smart user responded to the tweet by guessing the correct T address of the origin of his funds, essentially unmasking a shielded transaction. Did we just see Zcash get cracked? Twitter user traced the Zcash shielded transaction back to its T address. In other words, the zero knowledge proofs have been defeated. Um, okay. Hmm. Huh, nice. Um, all right. Right, we can downplay it as a lucky guess, but it's all about whittling down your options and then doing the good old-fashioned detective work. And if that means bluffing, that's. As seen in this example, this kind of heuristic guessing can be surprisingly effective due to Zcash's transparent by default blockchain. In order to utilize Zcash privacy features, its users are required to actively choose to manually shield their transactions and move funds into the shielded pool. Most Zcash wallets don't include this feature. This is problematic. And it's very rarely enabled by default in the vast majority of Zcash wallets. Since most users tend to be lazy in regards to their operational security, prone to bad habits, and don't proactively take extra precautions to hide their transaction patterns, it is easy for an outside observer with additional insight, such as an exchange, Coinbase. I've heard this is somewhat unsubstantiated. I haven't looked into it. Well, not its entirety, but apparently Coinbase had blocked people's accounts, blocked access to their accounts and funds. Right, it's like real money that's in there sitting. Um, because these users spend their coins on purchases that are not approved by Coinbase's I cultural team policies and culture, or I don't know, like what they call it in Silicon Valley these days. But blue-haired girls that went to school for HR, basically. So I don't know, a person spent money on a gambling site, or I don't know, maybe it was a porn site or gun site. I don't know what it was. Um, and well, I guess that was given as a reason for blocking these accounts. Um, if you want to learn more about it, you can. The lesson here for me is to be very cautious with Coinbase. Uh, you know, I'm not in the habit of buying guns, porn, or what was the third thing I mentioned? Gambling. Although, I mean, day trading. What's that if not gambling? But whatever. Okay, so yeah, these exchanges, man. There's no privacy if you're on these exchanges. They know you. Also, most services such as exchanges only allow T-address transactions, which can erode users' privacy. They tend to look with suspicion on users who move funds to and from the shielded pool of addresses. Well, I don't care how they look at us, right? They tend to view with suspicion. It's like, motherfucker, my money, my business. Institutions, they give themselves too much liberty. Other major concerns about Zcash. There are additional reasons why we distrust and dislike Zcash. While examining the origins of Zcash, it is interesting to note that it has some globalist deep state connections. The original Zero Cash protocol research was partially funded by DARPA, that stands for Department of Defense's Advanced Research Project Agency, and other agencies, which raises some red flags. Inevitably, some have raised the possibility of the inclusion of a backdoor for three-letter agencies. The original Zero Cash Project website lists the authors and sponsors for the project as seen in the screenshot below. Let's see. Okay, so we have Amazon connection, we have Tel Aviv connection. There's DARPA. Israeli ministry. Okay. We also distrust Zcash since one of its team members, Matthew Green, once said in a now deleted article that he could add a police backdoor to ZeroCoin, the same technology which Zcash is built upon. This page on ZeroCoin plus Matthew Green, scientist on the Zcash team page, is now deleted, but the internet never forgets. ZeroCoin was initially supposed to be added to Bitcoin in some manner, but now exists as an altcoin known as Zcash, a backdoor, Green says. The fact that one of the scientists behind Zcash is a statist who is willing to publicly condone adding a police backdoor in its code should be very alarming. So, statist, we got to talk about that. I assume that literally everyone is a statist. Most people are so statist that they don't even know what that is. They've never considered whether they are or aren't, but they take their state, their nationality, their country, their patriotism for granted. And it's never questioned. Until perhaps at some point, you do, and, you ask enough questions. You realize state is a fiction. And once you realize that, you have to judge it based on the way you judge everything else, which is good or bad, be better off with it or without it. What's up? Uh, I'm not a fan. I do see benefits though. I suppose if you're hanging out with crypto vigilantes all day long, then the others could be referred to as statists. But really, you're really saying that everyone uh, outside your tiny little group of people. I don't know what I'm trying to say. I guess numbers matter is what I'm trying to say. You know, everyone's a statist. If we assume that, we'll probably make a correct assumption. So here's what I'm trying to say. Just because this guy said it doesn't mean that there aren't 100,000 million dudes like him working in any number of altcoins, Zcash or Pirate Chain or otherwise, who are statists, and they either know it or don't know. Everyone in the information security business knows that there is no such thing as a backdoor that cannot also be abused by criminals. Well, hang on. Everyone in the information security business knows that there's no such thing as information security. That's an accurate statement. All right. Period. Nothing else needs to be said, but here I'll say it. Here are a couple of truths. If you have physical access to a device, you own the device. Um, and I mean own in like pwn kind of sense. You own the device. You can go all up in it. You can get admin privileges, log in, access, and retrieve all data. Um, some of it may be a little more difficult when it's encrypted or whatever. Um, Even with like damaged hard drives, deleted, etc. Retrieval is possible. And if you have physical access to a device, you own the device. And government, or three-letter agencies, as Jeff and the team like to say, has physical access to every single device inside the United States. So they own every single, or pwn, every single device in the United States. There's no getting around this. So everyone in the information security business knows that there's no such thing as information security. Additionally, Ethereum Classic developer and Cardano founder Charles Hoskinson was heard talking about Zcash being part of the conversation regarding auditable backdoors and breaching privacy during an interview as well. Of course, Monero core team member Ricardo Fluffy Pony Spagni had something to say about this. For reminding us that Zcash is a project nobody should ever trust with their privacy. Can't wait for China to add an auditable backdoor to Zcash and encourage adoption. Best way to deal with dissidents. Getting back to the so a lot of this sentiment is an echo of an era gone by, where people were moving to altcoins because of privacy issues, lack of privacy. That is to say. Um, but that is an era gone by. These coins are now becoming assets. Altcoins, certainly Bitcoin, Ethereum is now an asset class all of its own. This is hugely significant. This can't be overstated. That cryptocurrency is its own asset class. Now, we haven't had a new asset class in how long? What is an asset? A piece of land is an asset. A house on that piece of land is an asset. It's also a liability in some sense. I want to, refine it, but these are by financial machinations, things such as land, stocks, homes, buildings, right? These are assets. How flawed that thinking is, let's put that debate aside. But these are considered assets. Gold, of course, silver, precious metals. These are assets. Not everything's an asset. Shells and sticks used to be used for money. Sticks in England 500 years ago. Less, actually. I believe the King of England bought his way into the Bank of England with a stick. I'm not making that up. Shells. But, these things didn't preserve their asset status. Not that money is necessarily uh, an asset in every instance. Money is an asset in some instances. Uh, I don't know, like when you have a lot of it, it's an asset. When you have a little of it, it's not. We can start there, go from there. Anyways, getting back to the privacy side of things, I think it's a human right. Yeah, I agree. I agree. But you have to approach it in a more nuanced way than it is completely. Is it completely transparent or is it completely private? You need to talk about auditable backdoors. You need to talk about the ability to share and breach the privacy of people that you desire. And Zcash is being part of that conversation. They recently published a great paper in December 2018 called ZEXE. Zeeks. And they're working with some great academics and providing a lot of innovation in this space. So I think it's a fundamentally sound project. Even Zcash founder, CEO Zuko Wilcox O'Hearn himself made a careless tweet back in 2017 where he mentioned the idea of making Zcash too traceable for criminals while still being completely private and fungible, but regretted saying this the next day. I think make Zcash too traceable for criminals like WannaCry, but still completely private. These two ideas are contradictory to one another, and the fact that Zuko actually said this reveals his lack of understanding. Zuko says they want to make Zcash criminal transaction traceable. Green said already some years ago for Zcoin, we could add on some features would let the police, for instance, to be able to track money laundering, a backdoor. Now he works for Zcash. Whichworth has an anonymous coin where the I mean, listen. What Green said is that it's possible. I could tell you that it is possible. We could do it. And if I don't have any particular objection, um, you know, people are going to collaborate with the authorities. Like, you know, they care about their jobs and their livelihoods, and um, people are agreeable, generally speaking. And if Green doesn't build the backdoor, somebody else will. It's so. Green said, "Who cares what he said, right? What has he done?" It's very much possible that he has done it, but Whichworth has an anonymous coin where the devs can decide which transaction they make selectively transparent. Right. Right. Okay. Zuka also stated during a presentation that he doesn't understand how zero knowledge proofs actually work, but relies on other people for this. Keep in mind that this kind of cryptography is very new. Understandably, this is worrisome to some potential users and investors. I mean, Zuko could have interpreted the question being asked from an engineering standpoint, right? And as a CEO, you may not understand the code level of zero knowledge proofs, right? Uh, so, of course, he relies on other people for this. Um, if he's a This alone, of course, doesn't mean anything. If he, you know, relies on everybody for everything, that might be a problem, or maybe not. I don't know. Who can? Who knows, right? Being a CEO is not about knowing. Another area of concern regarding Zcash is that in our research, we found an example where the second largest Zcash mining pool was caught censoring Zcash's optionally shielded transactions. Allegedly, this occurred because the pool operator didn't feel like dealing with the complexity of processing shielded transactions. Nevertheless, this analysis of the story was quite fascinating to read. Hmm. How is it that censoring requires less energy than not censoring? That's I'd like to understand that. At this point, our caution regarding Zcash has elevated to the point of not even being comfortable naming it optionally private. In the vast majority of cases, Zcash is just as transparent as Bitcoin, while offering its user a false sense of privacy. Therefore, Zcash is not a true privacy coin. Zcash centralization concerns. A further area of serious concern is that Zcash is essentially controlled by the US-based company with a CEO. What decentralized cryptocurrency has a CEO? Zcash is backed by the Zcash Foundation and the Zcash Electric Coin Company, and is led by its founder and CEO, Zuko Wilcox O'Hearn. It also has a board of directors and received $3 million in funding from corporate investors. Zcash's corporate governance and structure in the US makes it easier for the government to legally compel it to insert a backdoor. Perhaps even though a top secret FISA court, as we learned happened with companies like Verizon via the Edward Snowden revelations, which is a serious risk. Zcash was originally launched back in 2016 with a maximum supply of 21 million coins, the same max supply as Bitcoin. In 2016, Zuko announced that the founders' insiders were going to pay themselves 10% of all Zcash mined over time, 20% of all Zcash mined for the first 4 years, with a maximum amount of 2.1 million coins. Okay. The Zcash team calls this controversial 20% Zcash miner tax the founder's reward. This raises concerns in regards to centralization of economic fairness for a currency that is supposed to be used as money. Who wants to use money where a cabal of central bankers pay themselves 10% of all the funds in existence just for being smart enough to help build it? That almost sounds like the current system of banksters. Many of the developers in the cryptocurrency communities are appalled by this so called genius miner tax. At this point, you may be wondering if Zcash is so flawed that then why did we even include it in our crypto portfolio at all? Even with its flaws, more of which we will address further below, we admit that the Zcash's research and implementation of ZK Snark's technology as applied to cryptocurrency has been revolutionary. The research and development their team has made in this area has left a valuable impact on the cryptocurrency community and ecosystem, even though we disagree with the specific method of implementation via optional and default disabled privacy features. Additionally, keep in mind that ZEC will be undergoing its first halving event in November 2020, which could result in a price rally as anticipation builds beforehand. What about Z Classic? In response to the frustration over the Zcash Genius tax, some people have praised Z Classic as the solution to Zcash flaws. Z Classic is a fork of Zcash created by crypto influencer Rhett Craigton in 2016 that simply removed the controversial 20% Zcash miner tax. In Zcash's more recent history, we've begun to see some of the consequences of its centralized planning. In Zcash CEO Zuko's blog post regarding the founder's reward back in February 2016, he explained that the end result would be a total maximum ZEC supply of 21 million coins, with a total of 2.1 million going to the founder's reward. Part of the founder's reward would be used to repay the original VC investors and founders, and would expire at the time of the Zcash block halving set to occur around November 20. However, people in the Zcash community begin to speculate that the central planners behind Zcash would break their promise to the community even after making adjustments to the founder's reward. The Zcash Electric Coin Company has been spending more money than they took in, which resulted in losses. A longtime Zcash supporter, Howard Liu, decided to lead the launch of a hard fork called Ycash. In a forum post, Liu said, "We are also launching Ycash to uphold the promise that the Zcash founder's reward would be forever capped at 2.1 million coins that we fear will come under increased pressure between now and the expiration of the founder's reward in October 2020." Okay. As a result, Zcash successfully forked into another coin, Ycash, in 2019 in anticipation that the promise of forever capping the founder's reward at 2.1 million coins would be broken. Sure enough, the Zcash central planners broke their promise. Earlier in 2020, the Zcash team essentially broke their original agreement to only take 20% miner dev tax and seized the tax after the first 4 years. After a community vote, they decided to continue taking a 20% minor tax to fund development, as seen in the proposal below. Okay. Back in 2016, Z Classic seemed like a great idea, and miners and investors in the coin were excited about this because they didn't want to pay the miner dev tax and believed it was unfair and not the ideal plan for development. We do too. Many of us believe that the development should be funded voluntarily through donations rather than by a tax forced upon the miners. Without any accountability for the developer. The excitement around ZCL eventually caused it to pump in price before eventually dumping it. Minor dev taxes are lazy in our opinion. They come forth from a socialist mentality of thinking that cryptocurrency protocol development necessitates a subsidy. Yesterday, I was reading a book. I read the first chapter of The Politics of Bitcoin. Perhaps I'll link to it in the description. when I upload this video. But the author, David Golumbia, made the case that cryptocurrency is inherently right-leaning, ideologically speaking. And while that may be the case, we see that we can build our ideologies into our software. There's this old, not that old, computer aged saying something like, an algorithm can't be racist, or something like that, right? Or uh, people will speak to the infallibility of an algorithm or a computer process or something like that as if it doesn't have a bias. And of course it does. Every single line of code is imbued with a bias of its creator. Not to mention that the product itself is a product that, when considered as a totality, essentially encompasses the creator's ideology. So, can algorithms be racist? Absolutely. Or any other ist, it doesn't leftist or rightist, or, it doesn't matter. I'm just using one example. You could put a million examples in there. Computers don't care. They just process what you give them. No, computers care. They don't just process what you give them. Computers care because the people who wrote the code care in a certain way. And it's the accumulation of that care that is the totality of that software. Zclassic failed to solve any of Zcash's inherent privacy problems. There is nothing significant or special about Zclassic other than the removal of the controversial dev tax. Zclassic is really just Tclassic, therefore we dismiss it from consideration as a serious investment. The Bitcoin private hidden inflation scam. After abandoning Zclassic, Rhett Creighton, a popular smooth-talking crypto influencer who is considered by some astute crypto analysts to be a shady character, went on to launch and promote Bitcoin Private, a fork merge of Bitcoin and Zclassic, which is known by many to be a scam. BTCP was shilled by John McAfee, and there was lots of hype regarding it, with an influx of dumb money investors. However, it was later revealed that John McAfee was charging $105,000 per tweet for promoting cryptocurrency projects. I assumed he was part of a pump and dump scheme. This is even more banal. It was also later revealed that BTCP's founders had secretly pre-mined 2 million coins for themselves and hid it in the shielded pool, hoping that no one would notice. Some analysts at Coinmetrics performed some fascinating in-depth forensic research to help uncover this fraud. Mr. X previously mentioned this in this article for the TDB January 2019 Dispatch. So here's a novel idea. Build a kind of coin where you want forensic scientists to go in and do an in-depth forensic research to help uncover what you've done. Build that kind of coin. Let them write your story. Red has been called a serial forker and a scammer. Red has been called a serial forker and a scammer by many respected people in the cryptocurrency community. After he created Z Classic and abandoned it. He then did the same thing with Bitcoin Private and got fired from the team, and then announced he was fork merging Prime Coin and Bitcoin to form Bitcoin Prime. Those are all worthless coins in our opinion. Right. Okay, so hang on. Let's think through this. Rhett, individual, is a serial forker. There are over 5,000 cryptocurrency, altcoins, whatever, cryptos, in circulation right now. There's a discussion about whether or not only one cryptocurrency will survive and be proven dominant. And, people are betting on Bitcoin or Ethereum or whatever, right? Chainlink or whatever's XRP, whatever's like the latest and greatest. But here's a prediction. In 5 years, there'll be 500,000 cryptos. I heard somebody say, well, it would be ridiculous to have a banana coin and an apple coin, and not Apple the company, Apple the fruit, and bread coin and eggs coin, etc., etc., or a coin with which you buy gas, and a coin with which you buy water, and a coin with which you buy ginger ale, etc., etc., right? That's ridiculous, this person claimed. And yes, it would be ridiculous if you if you had to carry 50 different currencies in your pocket, but you don't. All of this can be mediated by technology. So if you want some bananas, you invest in some banana coins, man. Why the hell not? That's the other thing. People love gambling, speculating. It's what Vegas is about. It's what Atlantic City is about. It's what stock exchange is about. It's what coin exchanges are about. A lot of people in the crypto space misrepresent where the industry is at this moment by essentially focusing on a tree. But if we pull back and take a look at the big picture, we look at the forest, what we're seeing is that crypto is a new asset class. There's a lot of money, energy, people going into crypto right now. It's regulated just enough for normies to join, and it's still wild, wild west enough for John McAfee's of the world to fire off their 6 shooters into the air and wahoo. Example. And something like Coinbase will have more mainstream approved coins, and something like some distributed, perhaps McAfee's distributed exchange, will have these guerrilla coins that are popping up. And of course, both will exist. And I say that to say, well, I don't know this Rhett fellow, right? But I'm trying to give him the benefit of the doubt. And by saying the following, we will all soon be serial forkers. We should be so lucky to be serial forkers. We should be so lucky to understand the technology and the ecosystem enough to put out our own money into the system. Think about the significance of that. Printing dollars is illegal. But you can write some code and exchange it for dollars. That's amazing. So we will soon all be serial forkers. You know, amateurs or semi-pros who know a little bit of technology enough to make their own banana coin. And of course, not the very first one we do is going to succeed. That's extraordinarily unlikely. That your first project, let's say, and keep in mind, like, you know, a cryptocurrency wouldn't be my first project ever. I've had many. But it would be my first cryptocurrency project, right? And for some people, it will be their first project ever, and it will be cryptocurrency. So not only will they not have the muscle memory of how a good project and a good team should function and how traction feels, right? They don't have any of that. Plus, they need to get up to speed on something, on a technology that's moving 1,000 miles an hour. So perhaps some of those forks that some, perhaps many of us will do in the future, they will fail. Because you're just not that smart. And the world is very complex. And when it does, a lot of people will be disappointed. And then some of those will label you all sorts of things, scammer being the least of which. But I don't know anything about Rhett, but thus far, I take him to be a serial forker and a failure, which is a step up from a scammer, I would say. I don't know the details. I don't know who this person is. Giving him the benefit of the doubt, and assuming that with most people, their intentions are good. Their competence is lacking, but their intentions are good. So incompetence goes a long way to explain all sorts of bad things in this world. But We are informing you of this cautionary tale because these are the kinds of scams and fundamentally unsound projects that we want our subscribers to avoid. Watch out for these pitfalls. Well, so, okay. No. Hang on a second, guys, right? What you want is you want for the reader to listen to you. You want us to do what you want us to do, and you want us to not do what you don't want us to do. Um, so you're saying, "Oh, don't Zcash bad. Don't invest in." I got some Zcash, man. I don't. I don't care about any of this. I'm looking at the numbers. Are they growing or not? That's what I care about. Now, the numbers could go up or down based on some of this narrative, but um, that's the privacy angle. I'm not so concerned about. Uh, like, what are people buying? No, I get that you should have privacy regardless, right? It's like, go ahead and follow what the hell I'm buying. I don't care. I get bored reading it. We're informing you of this cautionary tale. All right, sorry. All right. Really interesting fraud. To, I guess, TLDR maybe? Zcash clone Bitcoin private secretly created an extra 2 million coin pre-mine for the founders, something like half the market cap. Wow, hiding it in the shielded pool so no one would notice. So proud of the Coin Metrics team for this forensic analysis, one of the most fascinating case studies I've come across. Praise is due to Kanib for making the discovering, pushing through the investigation. Nice, nice. Very good job, Kanib. Red Correcting is a scammer that switches coins faster than Bryson Larimer. Stop taking his project seriously, seriously. Some sort of Captain Obvious meme goes here. Too lazy to look for one. Okay. As seen above, crypto investor Will Panda and even the Aeon community were keen enough to notice these scams. Don't fall for the hype and be sure to do your own research. Yeah. The court of public opinion is a fickle fucking mistress. Whale Panda could be an investor in Eon, could be the same person managing both accounts. Who the fuck knows? Zcash, over the past few years, there has been an understandable aura of rivalry and debate between Zcash and Monero communities. Now we will briefly compare the two across several metrics. Right. As an investor, I both consider myself a member of these communities and also not. I don't necessarily identify with these communities. I don't care past the point that is it making me money or not. People are so weird. The fact that Zcash is a corporate coin domiciled in the USA is one of the reasons why we've decided to keep Zcash at such a small percentage in our portfolio compared to Monero. One of the reasons that I've chosen to put Zcash in my portfolio is because it is a corporate coin domiciled in the USA. Um, I want spendability. I want liquidity, and Zcash can be spent in places. Um, and I'm speculating on it. A lot of these coins that are that have been institutionalized, let's say, right? So basically, anything you'll find on Coinbase has been institutionalized, and we can even say that Coinbase is that institution. One such institution. There's nothing private about Coinbase. There's nothing private about coins that are on Coinbase. Everything's trackable, everything's traceable. You're basically done from a privacy perspective. Just like dollars in the bank are system money, any crypto that you're holding in Coinbase is essentially system money. You declare it on your taxes, you do all the right things. Zcash clearly much more centralized in its development than Monero. In contrast, Monero had a fair and open launch, no miner tax, is not controlled by any company, but rather adheres to the FOSS ethos and philosophy. As we have explained in previous writings, it is researched and developed by enthusiastic volunteers and some full time staff who receive recurring donations from individuals and businesses in the community for their work. This atmosphere draws some of the most brilliant minds and hackers to beef up the network's security. In the quest for digital cash, Monero firmly beats Zcash. In the 2016 article on fungibility, Bitcoin, Monero, and why Zcash is a bad idea by Daniler, the owner of the website we use .cash, has shared some helpful information comparing XMR to ZC. This article explains the rise of blockchain analytics and Bitcoin tracing, and the growing need for a fungible digital cash, where all transactions and balances are private by default. The author shares some information regarding the weaknesses and risks of Bitcoin mixers, CoinJoin, Dash, and how Monero avoids these risks. He also outlines the risks of Zcash, including its trusted setup or cryptographic toxic waste problem, where an attacker could create invisible coins out of thin air without anyone else knowing, a topic which we will address in more detail in a section further below. The folks behind the website, Local Monero, have done a great job of creating a very informative article. Why Monero is better than Dash, Zcash, Zcoin, even with Lolentus, Grin, and Bitcoin mixers like Wasabi. With a comparison chart and analysis of Monero, XMR, versus other popular so-called privacy cryptocurrencies, including Dash, Zcash, Zcoin, Grin, and Bitcoin mixers, as seen below. Okay. Private, untraceable, secure, fungible, decentralized. Okay. Okay. This article also mentions Zcash's trusted setup problem and the fact that Zcash transactions are public and transparent by default, and several of the other issues that we've already covered in this report. Since privacy isn't mandated on Zcash network, this means that miners could censor certain transactions or blacklist certain coins' addresses or even blacklist private transactions in general, as we explained earlier. This results in some ZEC being less valuable than others and undermines its fungibility. In contrast, Monero is indeed fungible. The article explains how Monero is both private and therefore fungible, since all balances, transaction amounts, sources, destination, wallet addresses, etc., are not publicly shown on the blockchain, unlike the vast majority of other cryptocurrencies. Unlike the vast majority of other cryptocurrencies, Monero does not have a rich list, which is very important. It is decentralized, right? Yeah, okay. Okay. Why privacy matters. Well, um, well, it's such an odd way to ask a question, isn't it? Or to state why privacy matters. It, even in fighting for privacy, we show our bias towards record keeping. What right does any one person, and I accept no institutional rights whatsoever, no institution has any rights. They have power, but they have no right, so they're not even counted in this. But no individual has any rights on the mind of the other person, actions of that person. The question, of course, arises, at what point does this impact others? Presumably at that point it would matter. And this is where institutions cross lines. You know, we could say, hey, I can do whatever I want as long as I'm not harming you in some way, right? And that's cool. But that's not how institutions see it. For institutions, it's not about the economics, it's about control. You know, why is it against the law to feed other people's parking meters? Because it's not about money, it's about control, it's about complying. This is what it's about. It's extremely unfair. But then again, who said that fair is the superordinate value to which we ought to adhere? Anyways, targeted advertisements all on their own are a problem. Um, if tomorrow we removed ads, Google would go out of business. No media would exist tomorrow if ads disappear. And that's what needs to happen, right? Ads are fundamentally profane, fundamentally inappropriate, fundamentally undesired. The reason we're being tracked is so that we can be served up quote unquote better ads, which is, of course, is laughable. Okay. The next one is casing. The same way a thief, a robber, a burglar might case your home or place of business for patterns of coming and going, security detail, etc. because a lot of these transactions are recorded in some way. A savvy burglar could trace the funds, deplete you of them in some way. Gossip on how you spend your money. Okay. Look, boss, I'm part of a trade union. Contract salary margins. Minors can become sensitive. Okay. Monero's privacy, fungibility, unlinkability, and untraceability are enforced by Monero's usage of stealth addresses, ring signatures, and ring CT. Combined together, these technologies make it practically impossible for an observer to determine which funds have been spent, to link a transaction to a particular individual, or to determine the balance of one's funds. The fact that Monero enforces all transactions on its network to use its privacy features vastly increases its anonymity set, especially as its network of users grows. View keys, okay, allow transparent optional. Okay, so transparency of view keys used to removal, transfer the Monero account, or just key of a single. Okay, view keys can be given to selected parties, can be made public. Okay, by publishing their view key to invite easy public oversight. Okay, all right, all right. I like the details of it. I like what Monero is about. I like all of this. I think all of this should be native feature of every single coin. Like, I think every single coin should start here: private, untraceable, secure, fungible, decentralized. Like, this is where you start, right? Of course, if this is in fact accurate, I don't know. These sort of battle cards, right? That's what they call them in the biz. Battle cards. Ugh. These battle cards are, you know, bias. Love this little logo though. The article explains. Oh, okay, we read that, and Register saw that. The FBI has expressed some worry about criminals using Monero in the past. More recently, a leaked document from the FBI earlier this year shows that they are frustrated with the fact that darknet market users have converted illicitly obtained Bitcoin into anonymity-enhanced cryptocurrency Monero using the Morph token cryptocurrency exchange, impeding law enforcement's ability to trace the destination of the proceeds. Well, this paragraph here is worth the price of admission right there. In case you're wondering how to. In contrast to Monero, Zcash is not private in practice. As we have explained earlier, remember that Zcash does not enforce privacy. It is transparent by default, and the vast majority of users do not use its privacy features. As we explained earlier, it is well known that ZK snarks are strong privacy technology. Even Monero core contributor Ricardo Fluffy Pony Spagni admitted this back in 2018. When comparing with Monero, he said that Zcash ZK snarks provided much stronger untraceability characteristics than Monero, but a much smaller privacy set and much higher systemic risks at the time. There absolutely are better products. Mimblewimble provides significantly better scaling properties than Monero, and Zcash's zk snarks provide much stronger untraceability characteristics than Monero, but a much smaller privacy set and much higher systemic risks. Keep in mind that since Fluffy Pony's tweet in 2018, Monero has continued to upgrade its privacy features. As of this time of this writing, Monero has stronger ring signatures at a currently enforced ring size of 11, stealth addresses, ring CT, and Dandelion++. With the past few years, Monero upgraded to bulletproofs to make the range proofs required for its ring CT technology more compact and efficient. Monero's ring CT, ring confidential transactions, utilizes a cryptographic primitive for encoding called a Peterson commitment to hide the amounts of its transactions. Bulletproofs themselves are a form of NIZKP, or non-interactive zero-knowledge proof, which does not require a trusted setup, explained further below. Zero-knowledge proofs in the form of ZK snarks, as seen in ZEC, are a newer form of cryptographic technology than ring signatures. Ring signatures have been around for a while, and we know that they work well. The idea behind ring signatures began in 1991, research paper co-authored by cryptographer David Chaum. However, ZK snarks are a newer cryptographic technology, are more experimental, and are less peer-reviewed than the time-tested cryptographic technology of ring signatures. Nevertheless, the technology behind ZK snarks is incredible, and it always bothered us that Zcash only provides them as an optional setting, as we explained earlier. Since Zcash does not require the usage of Z addresses, and since the vast majority of users do not use them, ZEC ends up being almost as transparent as Bitcoin in practice. For the past several years, Monero XMR has distinguished itself as the king of privacy coins by enforcing mandatory privacy for all transactions by default. But more recently, Pirate Chain, ARRR, has entered the scene, claiming to have the best of both worlds. Mandatory privacy combined with cutting-edge ZK snarks enforced for all transactions by default. Okay. I appreciate this. I truly do. But none of this speaks to the kind of investment this is about to be. But I assume that will come later. Be patient. On the homepage of its website, Pirate Chain claims to be the most private and secure cryptocurrency in existence to date due to its mandatory usage of ZK snarks and integration with Komodo 451 attack protection via delayed proof of work. Its technology is quite revolutionary, and we will go into further detail later on in this report. Pirate Chain is the most private and secure cryptocurrency to date. However, even if we were to assume the enforcement of mandatory ZK snarks in a hypothetical code fork for ZEC, there are still some other points of debate in regards to design decisions about privacy and security between the Monero and Zcash communities, with some overlapping concerns that also apply to Pirate Chain as well. One of these overlapping concerns is Zcash's trusted setup problem, which also shares some applications to Pirate Chain. When Zcash was first launched back in 2016, it was heavily criticized for its so-called trusted setup, which involved the generation of secret master keys for its snark parameters, which are required to generate its zero-knowledge proofs. This was accomplished by what their team referred to as multi-party protocol for generating the Zcash parameters. In other words, the cobbled together a method for solving a problem that they were facing, labeled with a fancy phrase, multi-party protocol. In this helpful article, The Untrusted Setup, Why You Shouldn't Trust Zcash, The author explains several risks and concerns regarding Zcash. One of the biggest concerns he mentions is a worrisome problem introduced by the trusted setup process, namely the possibility of unlimited secret inflation by whoever possesses the secret master key. You can think of the secret key, master key, as the ring of power which must be destroyed. He who possesses the secret master key could secretly create unlimited inflation, thereby giving a theoretically infinite number of coins to himself, whilst going completely undetected. Okay. In Zcash's so-called trusted setup, this cryptographic toxic waste was allegedly created and then destroyed by 6 participants in Zcash's parameter generation ceremony. However, you absolutely must trust that at least one of 6 participants was honest, did not collude, was extremely thorough, exercised her duties perfectly, and did not in any way compromise the ceremony and allow anyone to secretly keep this key for him, herself, or anyone else. In other words, there had to be at least one fully honest participant who did everything perfectly, thereby making it impossible for anyone to recover the secret master key. In fact, Bitcoin developer Peter Todd was one of the 6 participants in the ceremony, and he warned about some of the ceremony's risks in a blog post and some tweets. This article contains some of this research, along with more helpful information on some of the risks of Zcash and Dash. The Zcash code trusted setup is not reproducible. There's no way I can prove to you that I did not subvert it. End of story, full stop. Only redeeming feature of the Zcash code backdoor is, as far as we know, it can't be used to violate privacy. It can be used to shut down Zcash. I don't know if I want to read tweets, man. Some of these concerns were also addressed in the crypto briefing article. ZK Snark's glitch could result in crypto double-take, which explains some of the ZK Snark's algorithm's assumptions, including the first knowledge of exponent assumption, which states that transactions must be correct if they have a certain output. I would add trustless then to that list of Monero features on the battle card. You know, decentralized, private, secure, blah, blah, blah. Trustless. Um, okay, could. Okay, so it can be backdoored. Whether or not these concerns are valid has been the subject of. I mean, I don't. I'm not sure what is the meaning of this. That one tweet basically said it all. Every software is compromisable. Every software has and is a backdoor. Like, what are we talking about here? I think, unless I guess maybe your reference point is movies and you haven't worked as a computer engineer or a network engineer or something like that. So your reference points are movies, basically, right? Uh, oh man, it's like the number of machines I've broken into is, well, I don't know, a few dozen. Someone with access to the machine and the internet is unstoppable. And it's like how to. You just literally you can Google these things, although it'll take some time anyway. See, Zcash is not unconditionally sound. Can't be with current tech. Requires a trusted setup. We'll need to redo the procedure to upgrade the crypto over time. So it's a vulnerability. Okay. In the article "Battle of the Privacy Coins," Zcash is groundbreaking if you trust it from Bitcoin Magazine. The author argues that Zcash fails the "don't trust, verify" test, which Bitcoiners often swear by. The author claims that Zcash's trusted setup not only allows for unlimited hidden inflation, but that it could undermine its privacy as well. Another helpful article, the Zcash catch. Explains the risks of Zcash's trusted setup. A follow-up article, "How to Compromise Zcash and Take Over the World," explains over even more implications of these risks. Wonderful. Yeah, so they're telling you how to hack it. Additionally, Peter Todd has raised concerns claiming that not only does a trusted setup introduce the risk of unlimited secret inflation, it also could introduce risk of breaking users' privacy as well, as seen in the tweets below. So, problem with hacking. Problem with nefarious activities inside the computer world or outside. But inside the computer world, you're traced always. So if you're doing something nefarious, do it from a new computer on a network you've never used before. That would be a good start. There's been some claims made recently that compromise of the Zcash trusted setup can't compromise privacy. I checked with one of the cryptographers working on zk snarks, and these claims are false. A compromised MPC absolutely can wreck privacy. Zuko needs to correct this. The problem is that the final public parameters can be constructed in such a way that they do not protect privacy. Doing this correctly is the responsibility of the MPC coordinator. The Zcash daemon is unable to verify that the parameters are. It's like bickering women, these engineers. Jesus Christ. So how does Monero compare to Zcash in regards to the trusted setup? In contrast to Zcash's trusted setup, Monero is unique from a design perspective because it is trustless, good, and does not require trusting any party to destroy the cryptographic toxic waste of an all-powerful secret master key, because no such key exists due to its design. Instead, Monero is based on time-tested cryptographic assumptions that are universally accepted and have undergone more thorough peer review. We recommend reading the Monero Stack Exchange question and comments on the page, "What is the difference between trustless and trusted system?" since it explains more details regarding this important fundamental difference between Monero and Zcash's design. Monero's design choice to use a trustless system is also the reason why we have such a large portfolio allocation to Monero, because it's more trustless. Its security relies more on math and cryptography itself rather than humans. Basically, we consider Zcash to be more of a centrally planned privacy since it requires that you trust the founders. That is a poor design choice in our opinion. In contrast, Monero is much more trustless and only requires trusting math and um, cryptography. Remember that Zcash's cryptography is less peer-reviewed than Monero's cryptography. Based on this information, all of these red flags have given reason for us to be cautious regarding allocating a large percentage of the TCV portfolio to ZEC. Zcash upgrades. Zcash proponents have argued that since the time of the original trusted setup ceremony in 2016, the Zcash team has upgraded its ZK Snarks system, including the parameter generation. Also, another criticism of ZEC was that it was resource intensive and took a long period of time to generate the zero knowledge proofs to utilize Z addresses, especially in the original Zcash Sprout network. However, after upgrading the sapling, ZEC has made some significant improvements in efficiency and speed. In order to mitigate the risk of cryptographic toxic waste, the Zcash team constructed multi-party computation MPC protocols so that various different people could work together to generate the parameters securely. As we explained above, Zcash's original parameter generation in the 2016 Sprout MPC ceremony was heavily criticized by Bitcoin developer Peter Todd and others. For Zcash's second set of public parameters, there were two phases: the powers of DAO and the sapling MPC. The Zcash Foundation announced the powers of DAO MPC ceremony in November 2017 and completed it in early 2018 instead of what was seen in the Sprout MPC, which required 6 participants to all be available and maintain custody of their hardware for the entirety of the process. The Powers of DAO ceremony had a total of 87 participants, each of whom performed computations to be used for generating new ZK Snarks parameters. The Zcash company organized the sapling MPC for constructing sapling's final ZK Snarks parameters and accepted over 90 contributions. And after completing the process, the parameters were included in the 2.00 Zcash software release. So, what is this? This is young dudes, okay? This is young dudes. They're in their 20s, they're in their 30s. They're young dudes, okay? They're in the new space, exciting space, new space, young dudes, new space. You understand? They think they're in the Lord of the Rings. You know, they're on a journey. They're on a hero's journey, every single one of them. And we're the audience sitting on the sidelines, backing this horse or that. These guys think they're in a movie. Capiche? Comparing and contrasting Pirate Chain versus Monero. Oh, that's cool. Let's see how that plays out. Remember that Pirate Chain is based on much of ZEC's code, as we mentioned earlier in ARRR. Well, so why isn't it built on Monero's code? This is due to the fact that Pirate Chain. You know what? I'm so stupid. Clearly, the intention of the makers of Pirate Chain is for us to have a little fun with it, so let's. This is due to the fact that ARRR implemented the ZK snarks parameters that were generated during ZEC's sampling upgrade. The ARRR developers copied the relevant code from ZEC's. When the ARRR developers upgraded Pirate to sapling, they used the same sapling master key as ZC, which utilizes the new parameters generated from the powers of DAO and sampling MPC, which was more secure than the Sprout parameter generation. Yikes. Man, this paragraph presumes so much specialized knowledge from the reader. It's hoofa. Even though much of the original risk of ZEC's original Sprout trusted setup has been arguably mitigated, the fact is that ZECs and ARRR still both suffer from a trusted setup, which is still a design flaw in our opinion. At a fundamental level, the fact that a trusted setup is needed at all is a problem by itself. We get it, bro. We get it. Therefore, we consider both ZEC and ARRR to be both inferior to Monero and Wownero in regards to trustless privacy and fungibility. In other words, we consider ARRR to be more risky in its cryptographic assumptions than Monero or Wownero because it requires trust that the ZEC sampling trusted set of participants initiated the ZK snarks parameters in a secure way. Nevertheless, it remains clear that ARR's privacy is much, much stronger than the ZEC's privacy, since ARRR enforces the usage of Z addresses and ZEC does not, as we explained earlier. Okay. So, why is it so difficult for you to then understand that there's no privacy, even with the privacy features? Because whatever blockchain Bitcoin software you're running, it's running on top of TCP/IP, owned by DoD. You have as much privacy with privacy coins as you have privacy inside your home in America. You know, as long as they don't want to break down your door, you got some privacy. But as soon as they do, you're on their turf, basically. And so by the same token, all of these coins are on TCP/IP turf. How are you going to deal with that, motherfucker? Assuming that its trusted setup wasn't compromised, ARRR would theoretically have a larger anonymity set for its private transactions when comparing with XMR. However, keep in mind that ARRR is not pure proof of work like BTC or XMR, since it also uses Komodo's delayed proof of work technology, as we will explain further below, and it is not ASIC resistant like XMR. Since R uses Equihash instead of random X, for example, there are ASICs available for the Equihash algorithm, as seen below. From a technical standpoint, one could also argue that R has stronger privacy than XMR, and wow, due to its usage of mandatory ZK snarks. As we mentioned earlier, R claims to be the most private cryptocurrency in the world to date. This may actually be true, especially as more people begin to adopt it, as we explain further below. Hmm. Hmm. Sometimes I have ideas that are my own that I need to write down, hence the pause. However, this leads into a counter argument from XMR's standpoint, since R currently has a much smaller user base than XMR as of the time of this writing. Therefore, Monero's much larger community and number of active users increases its anonymity set beyond that of R, since XMR's ring signature decoys are selected randomly from historical transactions on its blockchain. So if we were to make the original contributors known or even exalted, we could take this problem and turn it into a feature. Just an idea. This implies that any benefit provided by a theoretical greater anonymity set of R purchase transaction could potentially be comparable, or even smaller than XMR's anonymity set in practice. As of the time of this writing, we would consider this point to be debatable and more research is needed in this area. Several people have commended Pirate Chain for its large anonymity set and high level of privacy. For example, the Zcash Foundation has allegedly recognized ARRR for this, and even Diego Salazar. Diego Salazar? No. A respected member of the Monero community has praised Pirate Chain for their privacy innovations as seen in the Telegram screenshot and tweets below. Wow. He he banged on a keyboard for a while, did he? Okay. Privacy respecting currencies can provide only plausible deniability. Alternative explanations for the ledger are readily available. No such thing as perfectly anonymous currency. As anonymity set size increases, claims of plausible deniability get stronger. Best performance with the full anonymity set. I think there's a critical ring size above which claims of plausible deniability are good enough versus threat model like a curious but honest Eve. For sufficiently large anonymity set size, default on small anonymity sets outperform opt-in large sets. Okay. All right. Gotcha. Okay. After Diego's message was publicized, he clarified that there could be potential risks associated with it being built on Komodo and the assumption of a successfully executed trusted setup, as seen in the above screenshot. But it's turtles all the way down, guys, is what I'm saying, right? The same way Diego doesn't know Komodo, Komodo doesn't know the underlying infrastructure upon which Komodo is built. So it's a house of cards to begin with, make no mistake. On the other hand, if ARRR's user base and adoption grows significantly in the future, and if it is able to somehow improve its cryptography to no longer require a trusted setup, then we believe it could potentially rise in adoption and therefore in price to compete with Monero for first place in the realm of private fungible digital cash that actually works in practice rather than in theory like ZEC. Ouch! I don't like where this is going. Oof. Okay. I don't like where this is going. Um, there's there's a tsunami coming, and they're talking about a wave. So far, the tsunami is coming, and they're talking about waves. All right, keep in mind. And by the way, I don't think that the marketplace for privacy-focused cryptocurrencies is that large, and it's been largely exhausted by now because privacy freaks are the ones who have adopted some of these currencies early on, etc. Well, so given the rise in the crypto popularity, say of Bitcoin and etc., it stands to reason that they are now retired and they have plenty of time to worry about these things. So perhaps I'm wrong. Keep in mind that XMR has remained competitive throughout this time and has been constantly innovating and improving its privacy as well. Monero has a far more established user base, a larger team of PhDs, mathematicians, cryptographers, and researchers, which gives it more of a competitive advantage over ARRR. Well, that's interesting. um, competitive advantage is important, but it's no unfair advantage. And I wonder to what extent does a number of PhDs, mathematicians, cryptographers, and researchers, what's that got to do with the price of tea in China, as it were? Oh, don't misunderstand. I know that a deep knowledge of esoteric subjects is demanded by the space, hence the PhDs. And don't misapprehend. I know that complex equations must be performed by complex algorithms. Hence the mathematicians and cryptographers. And of course, from a practically infinite ocean of ideas, which few, or perhaps even one, often several, do you spend your energies on? Hence, researchers. And while that amounts to a competitive advantage, if one has more of one than the other, although their utility on an ongoing basis is questionable. PhDs, mathematicians, cryptographers, and researchers are important during certain phases of the project. For example, your entire product could rely on a singular formula, so you'll need a mathematician. But once that formula is in place, don't get me wrong, depending on the product, you certainly may need that mathematician on an ongoing basis. But depending on the product, access to this mathematician could be one time or seldom. And so how much competitive advantage does a team of these PhDs, mathematicians, cryptographers, and researchers confer on XMR? Sorry, Monero. Well, I guess same. Unfair advantage is what we're after. Thus far, the only unfair advantage that ARRR has is that the crypto vigilante has written about it. That's all of the unfair advantage that I see in this 40 pages so far. Now, I know they didn't set the standard for unfair advantage. I did. Guilty. They set a standard for competitive advantage. And I just want to chip away at that assumption a little bit. Depending on how the project is structured, access to PhDs, mathematicians, cryptographers, researchers could, in one instance, be a competitive advantage, and not at all competitive advantage in two instances. So one in which this is true is when access to such mines is necessary all the time. However, if access to said mines is needed seldomly, then having them on your team, as long as you have access to them, it does not confer competitive advantage. Certainly not much, if any. And third scenario, one in which it matters, two in which it doesn't matter. So the second in which it doesn't matter, third overall. You don't need a larger team of PhDs, mathematicians, cryptographers, and researchers. You just need access to one maverick mind, and that confers unfair advantage. And that is found in an individual. Can be found in an individual, can be found in a team, but not necessarily found in a team. A team, particularly a larger one, can be a liability. The groupthink is one danger of a team, and inefficiency is one danger of a larger team. So, I mean, I hate to split hairs, but that's what we're doing here, right? All right. But listen, that being said, right? Um, Goliath beats David 10 times out of 10. So a larger team means greater access to resources, more backing, more network effect, um, more of the important things. So it could very well confer significant amount of competitive advantage, undoubtedly. For example, there is exciting new research and work already being done by the Monero Research Lab into post-quantum cryptography to make Monero more future-proof. The Monero Research Lab has also been innovating and researching more advanced privacy technologies with Triptych and Arcturus, which would massively increase Monero's privacy and efficiency if implemented. A post-quantum world would destroy Amazon, Wells Fargo, Visa, and most world governments, but there's no reason it has to also destroy Monero. I really like this line of thinking. I believe that lost bitcoins will be excavated for fun as a school project by our grandkids and their robots. So we need this kind of thinking. Quantum technologies now. For all the people who would be quick to call ARRR a guaranteed Monero killer, we would say hold your horses. Yeah, no, why would be a Monero killer? Why would that be the case? There are many fiat currencies in the world today, and many more who have come and gone. So I don't expect crypto to be any different. Why would it be? It's only going to, you know, get worse from here, meaning better. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, more cryptos the better. I'm totally fine with that. Why not? For all the people who would be quick to call R, oh, okay, okay. As we explained, although R is probably Monero's closest competitor in terms of privacy, it is nevertheless important to understand that each coin is built on different premises and cryptographic assumptions. I'm starting to make a decision here. And my decision is, as of now, I'll wait till get to the final report, but this is preliminary thinking. I will not be investing in R at this time. Um, I'm going to watch with great curiosity as it develops. Um, but perhaps the next 30 or so pages will change my mind. However, I have to pee. Be right back. Monero's closest competitor in terms of privacy. It is nevertheless important to understand that each coin is built on different premises and cryptographic assumptions. Now, of course, that doesn't mean that it's guaranteed to be impossible for R to eventually overtake XMR in the future and take its place on the throne as the new king of privacy in the cryptosphere. Okay? So this is a long-term play. See, I'm not looking for a long-term play. Not right now. I've already found my long-term plays. I'm looking for a short-term. As we explained, it's important to know that R's design choice suffers from the same trustless setup flaw as EC, which could theoretically allow unlimited secret inflation of coins and possibly even a risk of privacy being broken, according to Peter Todd, in the unlikely event that it was compromised somehow. R's design also involves assumptions regarding ZK snarks, which are less peer-reviewed and time-tested, and less time-tested than Monero's ring signatures. When evaluating the risk of Pirate Chain versus Monero, a potential risk with Monero is that in the future there is the possibility that a powerful attacker with a quantum computer could theoretically de-anonymize today's transaction, since the coins are essentially obfuscated via ring signature decoy transaction with a smaller anonymity set for each particular transaction, currently at a ring size of 11. Some of Monero's early transactions pre-2017, which were thought to be private and ended up being vulnerable to some tracing attacks, these vulnerabilities have since been patched. In contrast, ZK snarks are more private than ring signatures since they have a higher anonymity set for each transaction. All other transactions in assuming that ARRR's trusted setup was executed properly and that ZK snarks are never broken in the future, ARRR's could potentially end up being more secure and private than XMR in the longer term, and time will tell. Keep in mind that Monero is continually improving its privacy, so a lot of this also depends on the caliber of the team who is developing each coin and their skills at staying ahead in the privacy cat and mouse game. Right. This is really the crux of the matter, right? The team who's developing each coin. Um, Teams can fail all on their own. And at the same time, teams can succeed being carried by a momentum not of their choosing, doing, or affecting. Time will tell whether or not ARRR can rise up to compete with XMR, but from our analysis, we consider it to be a strong possibility. And hence, we believe that ARRR is massively undervalued, as we will explain further below. I just don't think that many people care about the privacy of it all. And I care so much about it, it's not even funny. But I don't. How. I why Pirate Chain? Okay, let's launch date. So R is new. Block time 15 seconds difference. Okay, I'm not sure what to make of that. Mining algorithm, they're different. Whatever. Market price, cap, privacy. I've noticed a lot of crypto analysts and all the platforms are very focused on market capitalization, which I don't understand focus on market capitalization at all. Like, what is this number supposed to represent? Hold your horses. The question is not done. What is this number supposed to represent when Fed is printing? When let's try that again. What is this number supposed to represent when the Fed is printing? Colloquialism, they're not printing. When Fed is printing 125 billion per day. What is the meaning of market capitalization? All right. What is the meaning of market capitalization when the whole point of all of this is for us to mainframe the world? There's 4 billion people online. There's 8 billion people on the planet. And let's assume that institutions want to pull in more and more debtors into their debt prisons. And they're going to pull it from where debtors are presently not, so outside of developed countries, right? That's where the next 4 billion internet users are going to come from, outside of developed countries. Right? So blockchain is a kind of a mesh network, mainframe, set up to work on tiny little phones from like the previous centuries, mobile phones from the previous centuries, in like menu mode and whatnot. And you can still do your stuff, and it's still secure, etc., etc. Right? So, what is total addressable market, TAM? What is market when it's constantly expanding? And what is capitalization when the Fed is printing $125 billion per day? Then what is the significance of this number? How long is it good for? You know what? Forget about how it's derived, or the significance. Let's talk about how long is it good for. Particularly, this degree of precision is troubling. It's a telltale sign of a lie. The mathematical equations that get spat out by these algorithms are necessarily precise, so they're copied and pasted necessarily precisely. But it shows the intention to provide false sense of security at its accuracy. Projects a false sense of confidence. So I've noticed many crypto analysts and platforms focused on this, but I've yet to see anyone discuss it intelligently. The Pirate Chain white paper's abstract says this: a fully private cryptocurrency and shielded blockchain originating from the Komodo ecosystem. Pirate solves Zcash's fungibility problem through the elimination of transaction functionality to transparent addresses in its blockchain, making private usage foolproof. This feature results in a fully shielded user coin base in Pirate Chain by consistently utilizing ZK Snark's technology. Pirate leaves no usable metadata of users' transactions on its blockchain. All outgoing transactions other than mining block rewards and notary transactions are sent into shielded sapling addresses. Maximizing the efficiency and spread of its chain, Pirate utilizes the consensus algorithm Equihash proof of work originating from Zcash with an added security layer of delayed proof of work from Komodo, which provides a higher than BTC grade level of security to the Pirate blockchain. The future of private decentralized payment is here. Pirate Chain was launched on August 29th, 2018, and initially started out as an experiment to see if mandatory usage of Z addresses would work on a Komodo asset chain. In an effort to solve Zcash fungibility problems, it began as an experimental challenge when contributors to the Komodo project decided to create an asset chain with enforced usage of ZK snarks, according to Komodo developer and community member Satinder Growell. Essentially, the team's goal was to make DPOW protected Komodo asset chain with code forked from ZEC that would remove the optional usage of transparency addresses seen in ZEC and enforce the usage of Z addresses only. According to the Pirate Chain Beginner's Guide, the goal was simple: to create a completely anonymous cryptocurrency that is secure, untraceable, and keep the identity of those who transact with it anonymous. Developers of various cryptocurrencies come together to create Pirate Chain to show the world that it's not only possible but also necessary. It has been proven by government agencies and chain analysts that Bitcoin, as well as all the other privacy cryptocurrencies, can be traced and data can be taken from them in order to find out who uses these currencies, how much they spend, and who they transact with. Pirate Chain, on the other hand, has none of these issues, as it uses military-grade encryption and delayed proof of work to make it the most secure and anonymous cryptocurrency in the world. And in the statement itself, they have sown the seeds of doubt. Military grade comes from military, which comes from government, which comes from lack of privacy. Another exciting fact about Pirate Chain is that it was created in what we consider to be an organic and honest way. Similarly to Monero, ARRR was launched fairly and has had no ICO, IEO, pre-mine, or miner dev tax fee. Well, that's interesting. It's nice to sort of lay them all out there, right? Initial coin offering. I'm not sure what E stands for. Pre-mine or miner dev tax. It's nice. This is icing on the cake, in our opinion, since an abundance of crypto projects are created without any real innovation, are mostly intended to make the founders rich. Right. Some of the most innovative coins, like Bitcoin and Monero, for example, were created voluntarily and fairly in a decentralized way, and not by a company, but rather by passionate volunteers who were excited about creating what they believed to be the best kind of cryptocurrency that could fulfill the qualities of sound money. Since R was essentially created in a Discord chat room and announced on the Bitcoin Talk forums without much advance notice, some of the early miners decided to give out airdrops and rewards for promoting the coin in order to help bring in some publicity, and others began engaging in OTC. over-the-counter trading of their Komodo or other coins for Pirate. The old name before rebranding to ARRR, as seen in these screenshots achieved by Satinder Grawel from the early Bitcoin Talk forum and Discord discussions. What it can buy, Pirate Black domain. There's a beautiful scrollable timeline of the history of Pirate Chain available here. It's worth a Pirate Chain Privacy and Security Innovations. Pirate Chain is the first fully private by default ZK Snarks cryptocurrency in the world and has already been listed on several exchanges. Since its blockchain does not allow users to make any transactions to T addresses, R is completely private and doesn't leak metadata. Three-letter agencies crave this. The only times the T addresses are used is when new coins are mined, block rewards, and for delayed proof of work notarization. This is in order to ensure the integrity of the chain and to help provide accountability of the block reward such that the current supply of outstanding coins in circulation is public knowledge. However, privacy is still preserved since all of those coins are forced to move to Z addresses and are essentially invisible going forward. With R, the blockchain observers cannot see users, balances, amounts transacted, or determine which addresses transacted with whom. Pirate Chain is also recognized for its highly secure blockchain due to its integration with Komodo. R claims to have advanced immunity against 51% attack and is protected by Komodo delayed proof. Okay, that's not an explanation. In order to successfully 51% attack Pirate Chain, the attacker must also 51 attack the BTC chain and the Komodo asset chain itself simultaneously in order to change anything as seen in the diagram below. So in order to recognize an attack pirate, the attacker would Need to destroy all existing copies of the pirate chain, all copies of the Komodo main chain, all POW security network, Bitcoin into which the Komodo blockchain notarized data is inserted. I see. Right, it's turtles all the way down. Right? Above blockchain, there's Komodo blockchain. Above Komodo chain, there's Bitcoin blockchain. And it does help to think about this as upside down, an inversion. Even though logically we're talking about pirate chain, so it makes sense to prioritize pirate blockchain here. But the proper way to think about it is really, uh, Bitcoin is the container which holds Komodo, which holds pirate. But TCP/IP is the container which holds Bitcoin. Mm. However, this does not mean that ARRR is dependent on Komodo. If Komodo were to disappear tomorrow, ARRR would still exist. It would only lose its delayed proof of work. If Komodo were to disappear tomorrow, ARRR would essentially become a normal POW cryptocurrency that uses the Equihash POW algorithm. Delayed proof of work acts like a checkpoint. Komodo transactions are notarized on the BTC blockchain every 2 minutes and are protected by the strength of BTC massive hash power. The same thing happens with pirate chain transactions. Our transactions are notarized on the Komodo blockchain, which are then notarized on the BTC blockchain. An attacker would have to successfully 51% attack all three chains in order to change the history of pirate chain, which makes it highly secure, while still maintaining decentralization in comparison to proof of stake, or more centralized mastermode based cryptocurrencies which have suffered attacks in the past. That's reiterating what was said before, felt a little unnecessary, but okay. All right. Pirate Chain is the best of both Monero and Zcash combined, meaning that it's private by default like Monero, but uses privacy protocol, which is ZK Snarks. Okay. ARRR's emission schedule result in a maximum coin supply approaching roughly 20 million coins over a period of about 3,000 days. Ah, nice. So now we have a timeline for this coin. That's valuable. Well, let's review this. Other investors are beginning to notice the value in Pirate Chain. In the article, Pirate Chain, new contender for top privacy coin, which is a thing that people care about, I really want to reiterate once again that these super early adopters of crypto are soon going to be stampeded by a cornucopia of crypto noobs. We have seen how quickly institutional powers can change people's behaviors. Overnight, they can make people do anything. Even gag themselves. So these crypto elders are about to get stampeded by crypto noobs. And these crypto noobs, they don't care about privacy. What do they care about? Is a purchasing power, particularly future purchasing power. They're escaping the dollar and buying into this newfangled asset class of cryptocurrencies because it's accessible to them. Yeah, some will go into stock because that's sort of the built-in programming. But crypto is having the best week ever. Institutions are gung-ho about all things crypto. I make no distinction between governmental, economic, profit, non-profit institutions. Makes no difference. Institution is an institution, is not an individual. The only two dichotomies that functionally matter are an individual and an institution. Democrat and Republican, I don't care. It's the wrong level of analysis. Individual or institution. Catholic or Protestant. It doesn't matter. Institution or individual. That matters. Other investors are beginning to notice this. Okay. The author explains that its entire blockchain is entirely encrypted and essentially future proofed against blockchain analytics, thanks to its mandatory usage of ZK snarks. As we explained earlier, ZK snarks is cutting edge cryptography, which allows for an extremely high degree of anonymity since transactions which use this technology are fully encrypted and private. The author also observes that although Monero is good, instead of completely breaking the digital footprint of transactions by encrypting it like Pirate does, XMR attempts to obscure them through creating computationally difficult to trace transactions with a large set of possible senders and receivers for any one transaction. In other words, plausible deniability. They're creating a legal plausible deniability. The author then argues that a potential risk of Monero is that in the future a transaction could later be tied to your name if its obfuscated transactions are even broken at some point. Right. Plausible deniability may give you, well, what's plausible deniability for you is circumstantial evidence for the accuser, a government or an institution or an individual. You pile on enough circumstantial evidence and you well, you'll be found guilty. But again, this is true of anything. It's all we can do is create obstacles. It's a cat and mouse game indeed. And I don't think that R, nothing about R thus far tells me that this a game of cat and mouse game from a privacy standpoint, or any other for that matter, is going to end anytime soon. Or with R, right? So we have to be very careful. It's like, could we say the same thing for the other thing? You know? And yeah, we can. Anyways, the author also discusses the innovative integration of Komodo's DPoW, which claims to make it as secure as 51 attack against Bitcoin itself. According to the author, DPoW is like a cheat code that calls upon the King's Guard for protection and has been an effective way to ensure world-class security and decentralized funds from the onset of a project. This is a very problematic statement for me. This makes my hackles stand up. Oof. To use a metaphor, calls upon a King's Guard for protection. To to describe how safe my money is, or asset in this case, whatever. No thanks. I'd rather have the details. Finally, the author sees the value of ARRR's, organic and honest community-driven development. Is non-ICO, no pre-mine, no founder fee, and community supported. This means there isn't a big old stash of OG coins waiting to dump on your head at any moment, like 90% of new projects these days. We agree with this author's observation. We are very bullish on R2. That's good. This is a really good observation. This is good stuff. Hang in there, about 10 more pages. In May 2nd, 2020 interview with Gaines Associates, Dreth, captain of Pirate Chain, and Dream Tim, first mate of Pirate Chain. That's funny. Dream Tim. Explain some of the benefits of R over XMR and ZEC. In the interview, they made a compelling argument that Pirate Chain is essentially the best of Zcash. Well, this is now repeating itself. If this quote says something that we've heard 3 times already, I'm really going to get mad at you guys. Pirate Chain is the most anonymous cryptocurrency in the market, as well as the most secure. We are truly the digital equivalent of cash. All right, whatever. It's like the second in command is exalting the virtues of his own project. We've never seen that before. They explained that while ZEC was recently found to have 99.9% of its transactions shown to be traceable, ARRR successfully shields all user-generated transactions on its chain. They also mentioned that ARRR's zk-SNARK's privacy technology is superior to XMR's privacy technology, and that ARRR enforces it, resulting in 100% the Z to Z P2P transactions. They made the case that ARRR is the most secure and private cryptocurrency to date, thanks to its delayed proof of work algorithm. Furthermore, they mentioned that the ARRR team has developed an operating system, is working on an anonymous messaging app, as well as point of sale system. Now this! Come on, guys. All you have to do is say that. Are you kidding me? This is huge. Have I changed my mind of not pulling a trigger on R at this time? No. But that's because I haven't had an opportunity to fully integrate this paragraph into my algorithm. Huh. So they have an operating system. He's working on an anonymous messaging app as well as a point of sale system. Amazing. 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 I will look into this. Pirate Chain is a project about financial freedom. It provides 100% shielded Z2Z P2P transactions to preserve the privacy and anonymity of the user. It is run by a passionate community of volunteers, of which I am one. When you are investing in Pirate Chain, the bet you are placing is that privacy and anonymity will become so important to everyone that this will increase value adoption and subsequently the price, following a similar path as Monero has. Um, yeah, maybe, but I guess there's always going to be the Imperial Guard, the system, the Empire, right? And there's going to be the rebels, the criminals, the terrorists, the ceteras, right? And in this digital age, both require, well, they have different set of optimizations and requirements. One group wants to be anonymous from the other. It's interesting that the anonymous group, do they care about government tracing money? I'm not sure that they do or that they spend a lot of time on that. It makes you wonder whether or not what we consider normal is just the 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 oppression, the tyranny of the one with more money, resources. These new gag orders we're all wearing on our mouths all the time here in the future. Since that interview, the Pirate Chain team has accomplished more milestones, including releasing the beta version of their Android mobile light wallet. Wow, very cool. Wow, very. More of Pirate Chain's roadmap can be seen below. Very cool. Okay, so let's go over the roadmap, shall we? I'll read it, and you read it. Let's see if the same thing catch our attention. Hmm. They have an onion address. That's cool. I wonder if Pirate Week is happening in Cayman Islands. Hmm. Okay. Oh man. Oh, I thought that was video embedded. Very nice. Wow. Some of Pirate Chain's community members have built an online store called Armada, which provides resources for customers and merchants accepting R as payment. Their team has made it easy for online businesses to accept R as payment. Guys, I really would like to know the number of community members, like a real focus on the project and community members. How many? How active are they? That kind of information is just priceless. Like, for example, the number of Git commits would be wonderful in these reports. So R has a WordPress plugin, Shopify plugin, cryptocurrency checkout, multiple payment gateway, and anonymous website donation button, and a Pirate Chain community provided web service based on WordPress and WooCommerce. Very cool, very cool. Businesses that are interested in accepting R can fill out a web form to join the Armada and be listed on the website. Another exciting aspect of R is their membership in the BPSAA, or Blockchain Privacy Security and Adoption Alliance. For the Pirate Chain Happening event, which occurred on February 27th, 2020, some of their community members created a webpage providing helpful information regarding stock to flow models. On this page, they calculated the stock to flow ratio for R over time and compared R's S2F ratios with S2F ratios of other assets as well. Pirate Chain, crypto asset valuation outlook. Well, I suppose this is where we really, make a case for R. As we've explained, we're bullish on Pirate Chain because of its successful innovations in the areas of strong privacy, security, fungibility, and strong commitment to fulfill these basic requirements for sound crypto money. We are also pleased with R's organic launch and development and by its resilient and growing community. So, if your investment thesis is to invest in crypto money, then I suppose both Monero and Pirate Chain make sense. Both investments uh, are, you know, why not own both? Marketplace can have both Coke and Pepsi. Both will likely succeed and fail to similar degree. In the arena of privacy coins, Monero is the clear market leader and currently our favorite coin and largest holding in the TCV portfolio with a market capitalization of 1.648 billion USD as of today. At its peak, XMR reached a market capitalization of 8.45 billion on January 8th, 2018, during the last major crypto bubble. Zcash is currently sitting at a market capitalization of 874 million. If Pirate Chain can manage to compete with Monero and Zcash, then we believe it is possible for it to potentially rival Zcash in market capitalization. This will all depend on how many young men are actively committing gits. That's what it comes. What this is going to come down to. Of course, who are they? The frequency, the velocity, and etc. All these things matter. It's not that simple, but we don't decide; they do. And perhaps rise halfway to XMR's market cap, implying a market cap of 824 million for ARRR. However, keep in mind that we still believe that XMR is massively undervalued and should really be in the top 3 coins, which would imply a fair value market capitalization of at least 14 billion for XMR right now. Based on that assumption, if R achieves mass adoption, then we could see its market cap go to conservative estimate of 7 billion in the very long term, implying a potential future market price of about 35 per R, or about 576x the current price of 0.06076, based on the maximum future supply of 20 million Rs. Within what time frame? 8 years, 300 days, 3,000 days? Is that the time frame we're working with? Okay. More realistically, we would expect to see R at least rival known shitcoins such as Verge, which currently has a market cap slightly over 116 million. Let me go pee and think about this. This comparison came out of nowhere. This is an example of false equivalency. Well, perhaps in the mind of the author, there's a deeper reason why. But so far, the reasoning seems to be, well, this thing sucks and it's worth X. So certainly this thing should be worth at least as much. And that's not how it works. Just because something or someone is valuable doesn't mean that the market has fairly priced them. We have recently seen an example of Zeus Capital intentionally attempting to smear the good name of Chainlink. They've attempted to label Chainlink a shitcoin, as it were. Some analysts have speculated that this had at least something, perhaps even a lot, to do with Chainlink going up. You see, attention by any name is attention, and because it's energy and it's directed in a certain direction. And if it's directed in the direction of shitcoin, it's still energy. Well, specious reasoning aside, let's continue with the paragraph. Verge is known among crypto OGs for being a massively overhyped coin that falsely claimed to be private when it is not. So this, I guess I'm throwing it to anyone who cares to respond. Why would you falsely claim to be private when you're not? Have they attempted to be private and failed? Or have they intentionally meant to deceive us and created a non-private coin and called it private? I find the latter hard to believe. A failure to be competent is, something that we all endeavor all the time. I have a lot of heart for product makers, being a product maker myself. It's not easy building a product. Not at all. Software development is the most complex of human endeavors. I cannot recall the gentleman's name. He's known as a developer's developer, granddaddy of all developers. He's someone I know well, someone I appreciate deeply, someone whose name ordinarily would pop into my mind quite easily. But sometimes the brain farts, and I cannot recall the gentleman's name, but I can recall what he said. And he said, software development is the most complex of human endeavors. And as someone who's endeavored to be a human, and as someone who has endeavored to build softwares, I concur. ARRR should easily match and beat XVG since its fundamentals are far, far better. If ARRR were to simply match XVG's current market cap today, then its target price would be over 0.70 per coin, 0.70 cents per coin. This is still over 10x the current price of R based on an astounding supply of 164,936,255 coins as of today. However, it's very clear R is far better than G. Okay, here's the problem with that. When? 0.70 when? Within 3,000 days that you mentioned earlier? Within 8 years? Because if that's the case, what's the time frame, right? Because the dollar is going down in value every day. So it being worth 0.70 or 70 cents when a loaf of bread costs $2,000. It's not very promising, right? Is it too much to expect a little more rigor in these projections, fellas? I don't mean to be unreasonable, but a target frame would be very useful. Ideally, Pirate Chain should really be competing with Monero, but we will stay somewhat conservative and keep R's target market cap as only half of XMR's market cap. Man, this should come with a one-pager, just highlighting the numbers. But this is great reports so far. This is amazing. Remember that XMR's market cap is about 1.648 billion, so that would make R's future market cap minimum of 824 million, as we mentioned earlier. This does not matter to me. This market caps and comparison between market caps and what they might be in the future, there are so many moving parts to market capitalization, total addressable market, the debasement of the dollar, the uncertainty of the future. I mean, there's a pile of outside factors, any one of which can massively derail any of these figures. It's very important to not be predictive, There's no need to be predictive. Why be predictive? Throw it like that. I thought the whole idea behind the Austrian model is not to do predictions, right? Forget predictions. Let's go, what is? It's like, how many products do they have? Pirate OS, awesome. Pirate Wallet, amazing. Pirate this, pirate that, web browser, web store, this and that. How many products do they have? That's good. That's important. How many active developers do they have? How many commits do they make per day, or whatever the case might be, right? These are the numbers. These are the figures. Okay. Yeah, so Australian school of thought, we don't do predictions, right? Forget predictions. We invite you to climb aboard this pirate ship with us. Arr. You're gonna make sure this you give up for lose, blah blah. Yep. Okay. We like trade order the best. All right. Okay. A pirate chain. What's this? Are these all the resources? That's cool. Disclaimer, and that's it. That's it. Very cool. Great report. I enjoyed it thoroughly. This was well done. Uh, any criticism that was featured here was heartfelt. Please, no reason to take it bad. Wonderful, wonderful. I don't know what to add. I am I going to buy R? I don't know, but I tell you what I might do. Um, I might download Pirate OS on my laptop, and I might list some of my stores in the arcade. Um, so these are some of the things that I might do. Will I be buying R at this time? I don't know. I don't know. So that will remain to be seen. Well done, gentlemen. Thank you for this wonderfully thorough report. Let's go back all the way to the beginning and give credit where credit is due. The crypto vigilante. Good stuff.